Okay, let's try that again. I do. How's it going?
Oh, there you are. Now I hear you loud and clear. How are you?
Always one more button, man. Doing well.
Well, I was kind of nervous because this is a new computer, so I'm like, I've used the other one 100 times, but this one has 100 times better quality. So I'm like, let me just try this new one. So I was talking to my friend Brian, who's on with us, and I hear him loud and clear, and you hear us both. Brian, do you want to say something?
Good morning or good afternoon.
Hey, morning. How's it going?
Very good. Very nice to be in your acquaintance here.
Nice to meet you as well.
All right, well, Tom, I have a million questions. I don't know where to begin. I mean, I kind of do know where to begin, but it's like I could begin anywhere. First of all, I write for SoFrep.com. I just recently connected with them, and my way of helping veterans is to write about organizations that exist, such as yours. And yours actually happened to be perfect because of your special operations background, in addition to your foundation. So they were very interested in hearing from you too. And this is my way of giving back to veterans, to let them know that, hey, this is the organization that exists. They may not even know that. And that's my way of connecting with them.
Nice.
And I have a million questions. And the first one is to talk about your military service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why'd you get into, or first of all, the first question is, am I allowed to say Delta, or does it have to be the unit? Are there any rules?
No, I say Delta a lot now.
Okay. I noticed that in your book it's not that way, and I didn't want to screw that up.
Yeah, I don't put it in writing. That's they frowned upon that one. So I could have put Delta in the book, but I couldn't have written stories about what I did. So nobody knows what that is anyway, unless you already know what it is. So why bother? So, you could write the most secretive unit in the military, and it entices more people than the word Delta does anyway. So.
Okay, fair enough. Did you have to get the book cleared through DOD?
Yeah, I went straight to the unit. I worked through the intel section in the unit as I wrote the book the whole way. So they're the end-all approval. If I submit it to the military, it goes all the way down to the unit. I went straight to the unit, and they approved it from day one.
So you do still have good relations with the people from the unit?
Yeah, I catch a lot of shit, but yeah, no, we're still friends.
Okay, that was one of my questions, if they gave you shit for writing the book, because I know the secrecy is kind of a paramount.
Yeah, I got shit for writing it up front before anybody read it.
Right.
I got one of those, what are you, a Navy SEAL now? What are you, this or that? We don't write books. I'm like, yeah, but did you read the book, man? There's nothing in the book that's secretive. Intel approved it. Never would have approved it without, me doing what was right in the book and not putting anybody in danger. And that was how I handled it the whole way. So the book's about what I screwed up, my life, basically. It wasn't about the unit. It wasn't a look at me book, I do great things. It was like, look at all the shit I screwed up. So that was,
yeah.
I think people that were upset about it hadn't read it yet.
Yeah, and I kind of got that too, as far as it wasn't about what the unit was doing, it was about your reactions to your actions and what you went through, both good and bad. But the first question I have, when you actually enlisted in the service, at what point did you decide, hey, I want to go through these channels and be the best of the best?
It was stumbling blocks the entire way. When I joined the military, it was about an hour drive to Indianapolis from where I lived. Going to a concert, my friend talked me into joining the military. So that was an hour of my life that I never even planned on it, and I joined the Army. And then I was in Germany for 3 years, planning on getting out at year 4 and going back to college. And I went to a bunch of schools like German Ranger School, French Commando School, Platoon Commandant's Training, and I got excited about doing something different, a little more difficult. And then a friend of mine carried around a picture of his father holding him as a baby in his arms, wearing his Green Beret. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and he adopted his father's dream to be a Green Beret, and so I stole that dream as well. And just chose, I'm going to re-enlist and be a Green Beret. So I did that. Went through the, SFAS, the qualification course, and I'm in language school trying to learn Persian Farsi, and I was approached by a couple of guys that were in the unit already that I didn't know about. And they said, hey, you should try out for the unit, I'm like, all right, what's that? I'll do that. And they told me about it a little bit, and I said, yeah, it sounds better, so I'll do that. Put in for that, and right out of language school, I had a selection date for the next spring, and ended up in the unit. It was just kind of like luck. It wasn't like my dream growing up to be in the unit or be special forces or anything. It was just kind of the path that I fell into along the way when things were presented to me.
Yeah, and I I read the part about that there's a very low qualification rate once you get accepted into the program. And the way I see it, being a former soldier myself, I'm like, I always consider the Green Berets the cream of the crop. And now you're talking about the cream of the crop of those groups. What was the most common reason they couldn't finish the program?
People get hurt. For selection, people get hurt. You get blistered feet, you can't keep walking. It's just, people have tried and tried and tried forever. I mean, when I went through, a friend of mine went with me, and his entire backs of his heels were one blister each. And he's going into the 40-miler, and I ended up cutting out the back of his jungle boots with scissors that night so he could walk in flip-flops, essentially. And he almost made it. I mean, he made it to the last mountain and fell asleep on the way up. He had eaten so many Motrin that he started vomiting. He couldn't go on. He was dehydrated. But people get injured. A lot of people come home from selection and tell you, well, it wasn't for me.
Right.
Right. Why'd you even go then? Because that's a lot to go through for something that's not for you. Most people just quit. Not a lot of people get cut. They quit. They don't even cut anybody towards the end of selection, and then that's for time, and that's even for safety, because you can't have that many people spread out in a forest trying to keep track of all of them. Right. So there's a limit of time. And then when they get to the training, some people it's just too much for them. We've had people that made selection, made it all the way through the shooting program, and now they're going to close quarters battle, and they enter the rooms, these small rooms, and they're shooting next to each other. And people who didn't grow up in a combat arms but made selection, some of them decide, well, this isn't for me. This is just not what I really thought it was. But most of it after that is safety reasons. People who aren't getting the way that we do things, and they're doing it differently, and it's typically the ones who were taught how to do it already, and now they're trying to break what we consider a bad habit because we want to do it differently. Sure. It's harder to break that bad habit and get them to do it our way than it is to teach somebody new that never knew it in the first place. So we lose good people that way. A lot of the SF guys, we lost that way early on. And then towards the end of my career, actually, my last 2 years, General Sokolic had said, we want to connect the unit and Range 37 back together. We used to have a relationship, and I guess during war and everything, that kind of fell apart. So I started that back up, and I went to Range 37, worked with their shooting program, worked with the CQB program, teaching the things that we do in the unit, and those pass rates went up a little bit after that.
Okay. I have with me Brian. He's a police officer. Brian, did you want to chime in and ask a couple of questions? Assuming he can hear me.
No, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Brian, you there? You're still muted, buddy.
You got me now?
Yes, yes we do. These are normal hiccups, by the way, Tom, so don't...
Oh, no, I know. Trust me. I did a Zoom an hour ago, and I'm like, God, I hate Zoom. It's always something.
Yeah, I did too, but it's user-friendly minus this part. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, now that we got me on, did you hear anything that I said or no?
Did not.
Okay. All right, Tom, very nice to meet you. Thank you for your service. Eddie had asked me a while back if I'd like to join with this, which is an awesome way to spend this afternoon. A lot of questions. I have a lot of friends that are in military. Happy Veterans Day, obviously, yesterday.
Thank you.
Where to say was this the Clinton administration? This is down in Mogadishu, right? This is Somalia we're talking about. Like the Black Hawk Down, that whole episode. Sorry, I don't know too much about it, but I'm pretty familiar. One of the things that popped in my mind, just from a political endpoint, did you guys, I'm sorry to jump ahead. I think Eddie was in the training aspect of it. Clearly, you said how, it was almost like people just dropped out. They just couldn't do it anymore. Obviously, did you have, prior to this point in your life, would you consider yourself somebody who's, for the most part, been lucky, or were you a heavy athletic trainer? Were you somebody who just completely takes care of yourself mentally, physically, and that was one of the contributing factors that got you as far as you did? Or
No, absolutely. I get a lot of people that call me or text me and message me now about I'm going to selection. What do you got? And I don't tell everybody all they could do. And if I did, they still have to do it, right? It's no big deal. You still have to do it, man. I didn't know anything about selection. I was there with people that knew all about selection. I was in shape. I was young and physically fit. I was pretty young. I was 23 at the time. I mean, so I felt I could do anything. I was 150 pounds and nothing stopped me. And I went healthy. I was fit and I just did what they said to do. I didn't throw any extra stress on it. A lot of people pull themselves out, self-imposed stress, man. They destroy themselves and they try to second guess what's going on in selection. I just listened to whatever they either wrote on the chalkboard to do, and I'd do exactly that. And like I said, I had no prior knowledge of what to expect. I didn't know how long it would be, and I didn't know how hard it would be. I just had that mental attitude of, I'm never going to quit. I'm never, ever going to quit. They're going to have to drag me out of this sucker. You know, I'm on the 40 miler, and I probably quit mentally 100 times, but I just kept walking. I just kept going. And that's what I tell everybody. Go healthy. Go in shape, obviously, but go healthy. And have tough feet, and don't ever, ever quit. You know, the second you start thinking about, I miss food, or I miss my family, or man, it's cold, that's the start of quitting right there. And I just embraced everything of man, I love the cold, I love the rain, I make jokes about everything. Time to change the water in my boots as I walk through another stream. You know, it's like time to freshen it up. You know, there's nothing you can do about it but keep a good attitude.
You know, it's funny. I occasionally ask myself, I'm like, could I handle that? And then I take a cold shower. I'm like, yeah, there's no way. No way I'm cut out for that.
Yeah, you kind of got to enjoy how bad it sucks for a bit, man. And it's just, you pay your dues. You know, you pay them all at once, or you pay them out over time. So,
yeah. And he mentioned Mogadishu. I did have a few questions on that. What were some of the tactical reasons of the mission as far as what went wrong? Was it more planning or underestimating the enemy, or technical issues?
You know, I get a lot of underestimating the enemy. When you have that mentality of you're invincible, you're the best trained in the world, honestly, you get cocky, and you have to have that confidence to run through somebody's front door while they're waiting on you. It's just not a natural thing to do. And so it was, Somalia was one of those things that just, man, they look for those people that don't ever quit, right? And that's who they want, because when you get in those shitty situations, the first thing you want to do is not be there, right? Nobody wants to be in a situation like Somalia. And so, that's kind of like, and what was it, just your question that you asked me before I ramble on and not answer it?
The question was, what was the biggest tactical problem with that mission?
Yeah, it was underestimating the enemy. Tactically, we were profound, but when the enemy doesn't go along with your tactics because they're not trained and they're just crazy people running around with guns trying to shoot something, it's a little bit difficult to manage something like that. So our SOPs fell into place. You know, we didn't have a plan for running down the street, securing it. We had rehearsed for a downed helo, but not two. And we hadn't rehearsed, and we were never ready for spending the night. We didn't bring night vision. We didn't bring water. We were in and out unit, right? We'll be in and out in an hour, and that's the way it always worked out. And our tactics were, well, I mean, it changed the way we did tactics in the entire military forever. But fast forward to Iraq, we're still using hostage rescue tactics, right? Burst in the door, take down all the bad guys, and then what you have left, you sort out. We were losing a lot of people in Iraq doing those tactics. We're like, why rush in a hurry to die, basically, because when you're doing hostage rescue, it's shoot at me, not the hostage, and we win, right? As long as the hostage comes out alive. But when you're going in for direct action in Iraq, we had to change our tactics because there was no reason to rush into this house, right? Just sit outside with a bullhorn and scream at them, tell them you're surrounded, come on out. And if they don't, we start escalating from there, right? So we start attacking from a more defensive position versus running in the door and meeting the enemy head on. So I don't think those tactics would have helped out in Somalia much. It was just so chaotic, and there was nothing set, and people were running in the streets, and we're just not built for that volume of people coming at you. We're not built to last in a defensive position. And our training is what saved us, launching rockets and miniguns like there was no tomorrow. That's kind of what kept the thousands of people at bay.
Brian, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Obviously, it was chaotic. You guys kind of got thrusted into that overnight. Up until that point, I would imagine, have you been in any firefights? And if you haven't, what was like the emotional experience of, possibly, losing one of your fellow soldiers, or even on the flip side, taking aim and like killing the, some of these, I guess, what they call them, skinnies or something, or
Yeah.
what was, yeah. I'm just trying to think back. I don't, I know it's a touchy topic, but that's got to be, a building block from that first time. And how did it make you stay more focused, or were you a little more timid of the actual when that started happening?
What changed it for me was the position I was in. When I was in Somalia, I was one of the youngest. I didn't have anything to do except kick indoors and shoot people. I mean, I run around and broke stuff. I don't have anybody under me per se. I got my buddies left and right. We fought together, but that was the extent of my responsibility. Fast forward to the years in Iraq, I've never been in a firefight as scary as Somalia. Maybe because it'd be tough to duplicate that, but I took those experiences and I used everything I learned in Somalia to help the younger guys that weren't in Somalia in Iraq to think through situations before we rushed into them. One time in Iraq, we did have a helicopter get shot down on infield during a target. I think I wrote about it in my book, and it was one of those moments of I started to get on the radio and call, we have a Black Hawk down, and I flashed straight back to Somalia, and I thought, shit, here we are again. And I don't want to be here again. We're out by ourselves, we're small, we're under fire from all the houses around us, and a helicopter was shot down. The QRF couldn't get to us because they were tanks and they were going to take forever. And so I thought, here we are, waiting again all night long. And they called and they're like, I'm thinking we're going to torch this helo and be out of here in an hour, right? And nope. They sent in the DART team, which is when I first found out what a DART team was, a downed aircraft rescue team. And they sent in pilots, test pilots to fix the aircraft in the combat zone and then fly it out, which it had to do an emergency landing with guys on their way back, and then finally took off and landed again. But that took me back, straight back to Somalia, that fear of now I'm in charge. Now all these souls are underneath me, and did I make those right decisions? And so it's the weight of making decisions that took its toll on me more than any firefight and someone shooting at me. When you have other lives underneath you, it's more important than my own. So it took a greater toll on me.
How do you process emotionally? How did you process emotionally the first KIA from someone that you were close to, and how do you handle that now?
Man, I did not process that for years. I tucked that shit away. And that's what destroys us all. It's that no time to grieve. There's no time to, bury your friends because you're still deployed. I think I got to attend one funeral from Somalia, and that was for Matt Ryerson, who got killed on the 6th of October by a mortar round. But everyone else was buried and gone before we even got home. And so you come back and it's a party, it's a remembrance, and everybody's acting tough and nobody's processing the real grief. Fast forward years later and you're still talking about the same loss of life because you've never processed it. You've never really thought about it. And it took me a while. It took me until recently, last 3 to 4 years, to really process all the loss of life of friends that I've had. And it's horrible. You try to reconnect with their children, their families, and I've maintained contact with them all along, but the lives change as you go on, and it's new to you because you just start processing it, so you're catching up with everyone else that has processed it. But I always tucked him away. I literally on target one time had a guy come up and tell me, hey, Kevin's got messed up, he's really bad. And I had to look at him and go, I don't give a fuck. I got a medevac coming in. What do you want me to do? Break down and cry right now because I have 40 other people underneath me right now that I have to worry about. So you have to put it away, and you can't process it because as soon as you get back, you're planning for the next mission. And so that no time to grieve thing just kind of piles up and piles up. But you have to make a plan down the road to deal with it.
And how did you deal with it? As far as when did you know, all right, now I need to deal with it because it's manifested in so many different ways?
You know how I dealt with it before I really dealt with it was almost killing myself. lot of people go through this. A lot of people get down and depressed, and they isolate and they start drinking. And I was no different. I do everything 110%, and I certainly did drinking 110% as well. And you think it's, I'm drinking so I don't feel, or you're drinking to feel something, and it just neither of it works. And until my wife started really hammering down on the emotions of it and the loss of life and what it means, and get me talking about it, right? Verbalizing it. And I do it on stage now, and I talk about it a lot. And when I first started, I couldn't do it without crying over and over and over again. The second time, I cried a quarter of as much, and then half as much, and then, a third. And then it got to where I get emotional a couple times talking still, but I can get through it. And that has helped me process it by normalizing it, talking about it over and over again, and accepting it.
I had a guest speaker for a criminology class a couple of years ago. Her story was she was an attempted murder victim. Her neighbor's kid was high on some drugs and walked into her house looking for the car keys, having a confrontation, and he stabbed her about 20 times in the face and neck area. And for a couple of years, she barely survived it. She managed to get to a phone and call 911. But for a couple of years, she couldn't even leave the house. She was paralyzed with fear. And even her own family members started to tell her, like, you need to get over this kind of attitude. And by the time she got to my class, it was like 5 years later, and she was just starting to do those. And she told me that one of her ways that helps her cope with that is talking to other people about it. And each time it gets a little easier and easier. Is that the same with you?
Exactly. I tell you, I started at a soup kitchen. I was angry at the world. My wife now suggested, you should go give back. You should go help others in need. And I'm like, screw those people. They got there because they're lazy, right? I had zero empathy and compassion towards others. And that's how I survived. And, that with hate and anger, right, rolled in. And that's what kept me going every day. And working in that soup kitchen for probably 2 weeks, I met people that were in such need and were so kind and nice that, you get to know the human part of it versus the story you've told yourself, or the story that you've seen over and over again on the surface. Bad people, they all suck, blah, 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 and you dehumanize them. So once you start to humanize those people and talk to them, you realize, wow. And that helped me more and more to understand myself and other people as well. So definitely helping other people has helped me along the way. It's very cathartic to tell your story, help others, and then hear back that others share the same story, they feel the same way, and that you've helped them. And then you learn from that as well.
Right. Brian, did you have anything? I mean, I have questions, but I don't want to forget you.
Oh, you go right ahead, Ed. I'm trying to think of, there's a few things later on we'll talk about, I guess.
Okay. Now, as far as how should a combat soldier integrate back into society, whether it's between deployments or just getting out of the military in general?
Make a plan. I was lost forever, and I never made a plan until I started making a plan. And I thought, I don't have the tools to deal with the civilian world. I need to learn this civilian world, And tell you what, we're taught so many tools in our jobs, our previous jobs in the military. I was taught every tool, how to make a plan, how to make a plan for that plan, and a plan for the plan that doesn't work, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, all that PACE plan stuff. Then you get out and you're like, what am I going to do? And you just wander around crazy, and you bump into your spouse. You're like, hey, what are you doing today? I don't know, nothing. I get. And you're lost, and you miss the tribe. You miss the action. You miss doing things and feeling like you're pitching in and part of the tribe. Yet I don't have a plan to do anything, so I don't accomplish anything, so I feel worthless. So I tell everybody, self-awareness, right? Are you causing the problems? Are you the common denominator in your 4 divorces, right? I mean, I had to figure that one out. Jen's my last wife, but my 4th one. And the other 3, I was like, whatever, I was the common denominator, but I blamed everybody else. So self-awareness, and then figure out what it is you need to work on and make a plan and execute the plan. And when it fails, because it will, right? It will, because I've been doing this for 25 years. So I'm going to always revert back to that in muscle memory. My anger, my aggression dominate the chaotic situation, whether it's dirty dishes or kids screaming or the dog crapped on the floor. I immediately, through muscle memory, get aggressive, get big, dominate, and then assess the situation, and then work it out, and then I'm all good. but that dominate and get aggressive freaks everyone else out in the family, right? So kids don't like that when you get big and start turning red and you're huffy and you're just telling them, you need to do the dishes. And they're like, huh? And you're trying to treat them like soldiers. So the self-awareness and then making the plan and then failing and getting back up and continuing it and adjusting your plan and then failing and keep going until you fail across the finish line. And then finally that muscle memory shifts from anger and aggression to calmness and thinking and breathing and thinking through these problems like leaders should, right? I always remove myself from crazy, chaotic situations in the military so I could assess it and make the best judgment. But when I come home and the kids are screaming, I freak out. It's like, take those skills you've learned, adjust it to a new set of troops, if you will. They're at a different age, and your spouse does not want to be your private and be told what to do all the time. Yeah. And realize that you don't need that aggressive behavior to dominate any situation anymore. You know, we live in that world of probability. When you're in the military, I'll probably get shot, I'll probably run into the enemy, I'll probably have to be aggressive, to possibly. When I've learned that possibly somebody might want to beat me up or kick in my front door, then I can calm down and live in the green instead of living in the red my entire life.
You had mentioned the previous divorces. Now, the next question has no place in any article, right? But I have to ask out of curiosity. And then Brian, when he's done, you can go ahead with your questions. Why did you marry a stripper?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. It was one of those times where it was cool. Everybody needs a connection and security and attachment, and I didn't have any. And it was an easy way into it, and we hung out a lot, and it was like, well, screw it, let's get married, you know. And it's honestly, to be honest, to make things easier in life, right? I'm an instant single guy. What am I going to do when I deploy? And all I do is deploy. It really made life easier. So I think I kind of moved into that marriage, and all my friends are like, we didn't even count that when it was a blip. It was like a 2-year blip. She had an affair for like a year of the 2 years anyway, and I literally did not care. I called the guy she had an affair with. You know, my friends wanted to kill the guy. I'm going to go over there and get him. I'm like, who cares? I called him and thanked him, man. I was like, thanks, brother. you hooked me up, man. Have at it. She's all yours. So, yeah, it was just one of those, I don't even know. I probably wasn't thinking, you know. I just did it.
Right, yeah. I wouldn't count that either, but, you know, I had to ask out of curiosity.
It was a good time for a bit.
Yeah, I bet. Brian, go ahead.
No, I like the marriage story. I'm on my second marriage myself, so I can relate a little bit with the coming back home. Eddie mentioned earlier, I'm a police officer. We come from, I get off work at 2 a.m. We come from some pretty halls, and then it is like you have to walk through your door, put that hat on, and be the calm dad, you know. Which is not and here are the other problems that like pale in comparison to what you just dealt with, but yet you have to act like it's the most important thing you're hearing right now, you know?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Was actually therapy just hearing that. But I just want to jump in. In your book, you mentioned seeing the Twin Towers the morning of 9/11 from a plane you were in. Did that fuel you in any way?
You know, I'm on that plane where I got my team and another team with me flying to Boston that morning. And, you know, what's funny is somebody that boarded us knew us. And so when the pilot said, are there any military people on the plane? I thought it was a joke. Because I had my GPS smashed against the window of this plane flying from Raleigh to Boston. And we're flying over New York, and I see smoke coming up. And I thought, look at this smog, you know, back in the day when you could hold out devices and stuff and on a plane. And I'm looking down, I'm like, look at all the smog in New York. That's crazy. And the pilot's like, are there any military people on the plane? And I'm like, uh-oh. You know, I'm like, raise my hand, and I go up, and he's like, hey, listen. He gives me this quick rundown of what's going on, and I'm like, whoa. He goes, don't let anybody in the cockpit, and slams the door. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I wasn't worried about the plane at all, because, you know, it was half unit guys anyway. And when I landed, I think I was just part of the group of people in shock, like, well, what do we do now? You know, some of the guys with us, they wanted to go home right away, but we couldn't get home. And I'm like, look, we don't even know who did this, so we're not going anywhere. Let's continue training and preparing. So we finished our training there, and that's when they sent a plane up, picked us up at Atlantic City, and flew us back home. And the next day, I'm like, well, so what are we doing? Because I had another trip planned in New Hampshire past that for like a driving school. And they said, well, we got to figure out who's done it and what we're going to do. And I go, well, then I'm going to drive all the way back up to New Hampshire and finish my school that I paid for, you know. So I took our team. We drove back to New Hampshire and continued on. And I think the next thing we did was I planned a trip in New Mexico to train up to go to Afghanistan with our troop, and we were setting up the training to go invade Afghanistan. And that's when I opened my suitcase, and there was a card in there from my ex-wife. Obviously, it's my ex-wife, because the card said, "It's the second year in a row. Don't bother sending flowers. You missed our anniversary again. Thanks." And I was like, oh, fuck. Here I go again. So as soon as I got back, I told my sergeant major, I said, "Listen, I gotta spend some time with my family." And he's like, "Look, you're way past going to training anyway. It's time for you to go to training." So I went to training to try to save my marriage and missed the invasion of Afghanistan. But I mean, it didn't work out because it was me. I just dove back into training 24/7. That's what I did, you know. So spouses don't like that when you're never home, you know, and they don't like that when you're home. Your mind's at work anyway because you got a lot to do. So yeah, that infuriated me a little bit. But what infuriated me was not being able to go to do my dream mission of desert mobility, you know, and do that thing, and that kind of hurt the most.
You mentioned in your book that the people had encouraged you to write your book over, I guess, the last few years, and you finally actually did it. What made you finally go through with it?
My wife. She kept beating me about the head, saying, "Listen, you're not going to share stories. I know you're not going to share the secret ones, but what you do share will be a guide for people to follow to get it out of this hole that they're in. And it'll be in the form of an entertaining thing that they can do versus a medical manual or a manual on what to do and a self-help kind of pamphlet." So, you know, I threw in the war stories. She likes to joke about hiding the peas and the brownies, you know. So you bake this huge brownie, you put some healthy stuff in it, and they eat it anyway and they don't know it. So the stories were to keep people interested, but really it's, as you read it, you'll find that Jen's the hero of the story, and I was the loser who kept stumbling over my own self, trying to live my life and do more than I was doing because I never considered myself good enough.
Right. You did mention also about the text that saved you, that you were sitting in your car with the gun, contemplating ending it right then and there. Obviously you have time, but how did you reflect over that experience since then?
It's really driven what we do. I thought it was hard. When I first started, I thought it was really hard to help people. You know, guys like me don't want help. They don't want to talk about it. It's weakness. It's just not what we do. And I reflected back on it, and I do often, about how easy it was to stop me from killing myself. So I've done a lot of research, and one of the researchers took me to people who have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. Not a lot of people have survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, but there's a group of them that have. And to a person, every single one of them regretted it the second their hand let go of the rail. And that showed me how easy it is to come back. That text interrupted what I was doing. Those words, "You're late," put me back into military, I'm on a mission, I'm never late mode. And that's how easy it was to stop me. It wasn't a hug, it wasn't, "You poor guy," and it wasn't me with my head in my hands crying about war and my lost friends. It was me thinking I was a burden to everybody around me, and that it would be a lot better for them if I wasn't causing problems the rest of my life. But I reflect back on how easy it was. You know, I got a bullet in the chamber, halfway up to my head, and I'm thinking, mouth or the head, you know, and I'm thinking I feel sorry for the rental car people. And then this phone's buzzing, and I'm thinking, Jesus. And then I just picked it up, and it said, "You're late." And I cleared my weapon, put it in my bag, locked the car, and went back down. And then told her, and it was Jen, you know, my wife now, and I told her months later what she had done, what she had interrupted, and that kind of shook her to her core and caused her to change her job from working with me and training people before they go to war, who are the last stop before they go to war, to getting them after they're done, right? And helping them with everything that they've learned along the way. She just wasn't built for it. She's like, "I'm not built for this, and let's go do something else. Let's do a nonprofit." I'm like, okay, let's try that, I guess. I have no idea what to do, but just sharing the experience has been so helpful for so many. I could never see doing anything else now.
Brian, did you have a question or two?
You know, it's an amazing thing that you give your time, counsel, you know, with the nonprofit. There's a lot of people in need. I have a good friend who's New Mexico. He lives in New Mexico, retired Army Ranger, and the stories. It's a tight network. His different friends over the years are going through these different stages of dealing with what they've seen, and it's amazing that you can like be there for somebody, and like Jen helping you that day. If perhaps, I'm sure you might have done that for somebody else, not even knowing it, because not many people are strong enough to admit something like that. So I just want to say
it's sad. I get that a lot. Messages, you saved my life. You have no idea what I saw, a video that you put out on something that saved my life. And I mean, it's a sad job. We have to put our oxygen masks on a lot, man. It takes its toll. Like yesterday we did 3-hour sessions with Lockheed Martin, their MilVet groups, and it takes a lot out to just dump all that out there and then go back and forth with people in their lives and emotions. But man, it's when you hear from people that your message pulled them from the brink or just helped them a little bit to feel normal, it's addicting, and it's something that you want to always do. You're still giving back. It's a service industry, to help others. And thank goodness for donors that give us the money and allow us the time to be able to do this to help people that need it. And just breaking that stigma that you can't talk about it. Everybody I talk about this to, and everybody that talks to me is like, my story's not like yours, but there's no but. There's no my story's not like, the lady that got stabbed how many times? I mean, she's untrained, right? Untrained. So her trauma from one event could last forever and years. And I tell everybody, everyone has trauma, and it'll be there until you deal with it. I've spoken to people that fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and we cried together, after a speaking engagement. He told me, I'm going to go get help tomorrow, and his grandkids and his kids were there, and they had no idea he was suffering all this time, that many years. And I tell everybody, you can suffer until you start to get help. That's as long as you'll suffer. If you start right away, suffering's a lot shorter.
I had asked that same woman that if the opportunity presented itself, would she forgive the attacker as a source of therapy? And she said she would, although it didn't happen at the time, or has it happened yet? Is there an equivalent to that scenario for you?
Yeah, that hate that you have keeps you safe, right? That hate keeps you from all the confusion of why would somebody do this? Why would somebody be so evil that I have to pack up, fly all the way over there, and then kill you? It's or to be attacked by you. For years, and honestly, I think it was this year, maybe the end of last year, my wife's like, could you go back and talk to somebody from Somalia or somebody from here or there? I've got a lot of Muslim friends. I lived in Amman, Jordan for a year and a half after retirement. Arabs, Muslims, whatever, worked with them, love them. It's the people, it's those things you tell yourself to dehumanize the enemy to allow you to do your job, to allow you to survive that chaos. And it takes a long time for you to get past that and realize that, well, forgiving them or forgiving yourself. My wife said, can you forgive yourself, or can you forgive those people that tried to kill you? I'm like, if you really think about it, we're all doing a job, right? We're all supporting what we believe in, right? I'm supporting what I believe in. They're supporting what they believe in. And I've come to the realization that the only thing we know on this planet, each and every one of us, are what we're taught from someone else, right? So those people that hate me just as much were taught from someone else to hate me just as much. So should I hate them forever and let it affect me? No, I've given up on hate. You get a lot further with love anyway. And, I don't know if it's a situation of forgiving versus letting go and understanding the situation. And people have, I guess, a job to do, right? Bad guys got a job to do, and they got to be bad guys, right? I mean, if there weren't robbers, there wouldn't be cops. So it's like job security maybe, but forgiving them is tough while you're doing it because you need it to keep going. But after, it's critical for your mental health.
Now, as far as the young soldiers that are coming through the ranks today, what do you want to tell the aspiring special operator, the good and the bad? What advice do you want to give him or her?
I would say, and I say it when I sit and I speak to new SF guys, the new recruits that just got to the program, the ones that are halfway through, we go speak to them. I tell them, I know you're sitting there thinking this won't happen to me, right? I know I sat there and thought, who's this old guy? He didn't know anything. What's he talking about? So I tell them the truth, man. I give it to them real, and I say, listen, if you don't believe me now, you're tough, you're a commando, you're full of testosterone, and you're invincible. I get it. You need that to do his job. But keep it in the back of your mind for when he does that. These are more tools. This is another scope for your rifle. You know, this is another pocket for your Kevlar vest or sports something. This is another tool for your bag, like everything else, to keep you sharp as a warfighter and keep you sharp as a human. So we disguise it with candy. You know, it's like, hey, we're not going to give you therapy. We're going to retrain your muscle memory. We're going to retrain you for a different mission. We just use the same verbiage. And I just want them aware of it. Because I know they're not like kids. They're kids. They're not going to believe you until it happens to them. It's an experience, right? And so as long as it's in the back of their head that it's a possibility and that it's there, once it does start to happen to them, they'll call back. Oh, I remember that day Tom was telling me about. This is kind of that. Now they have some tools to start working on it right away. And those tools can help them identify their buddies that might be suffering as well.
Right, which is a hidden tool too. Brian, I know you were limited on time. Did you want to chime in before you had to go?
Sorry, I had to unmute my 2-year-old Presley here. Is going a little crazy.
I saw her carrying down that chair down the stairs. It's like, tough, all right.
Waiting for the big fall.
I know. Maybe she'll land in the chair on the way down.
Well, Tom, it was amazing to actually speak to you today. You've been put on this planet for a purpose, and you're doing an amazing job. And thank you for all the contributions you do every day for veterans and just for humanity. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, as far as the military and their mental health protocols, what could they do, in your opinion, to help the mental health out processing and treatments?
You know, they're getting better. We've always been saying, listen, make people do this. You have to do sexual harassment training. You have to do certain trainings 2-3 times a year, whatever it is they have. They've implemented certain things, and it's always taken time. We know statistically there. We know that suicides have gone up 22 to 28 a day during COVID alone. We know that suicides and special operations tripled last year, active duty. So they're catching up. They're starting to address it. I think a lot of people were thinking, not us, hopefully not us, and that's them until it happens. But we're getting a lot of calls from units that are bringing us in. A lot of family groups are bringing us in to talk about the truth. A lot of chaplains are bringing us in to implement and be part of their groups where they're talking to soldiers, and we add the reality of the story. We don't have to speak a certain way. You know, we're not doctors and therapists. We're sharing our story. We're just life coaches, really. So we're sharing with people the reality of how I felt. You know, that's not everybody's going to feel that way. Not everybody's going to get PTSD. Not everybody's going to be affected that long with it. But those who are the ones we're really worried about. The quiet ones that don't reach out. So I think they're doing a lot better. They just need to make it mandatory. It's not one of those questions like, hey, do you think you need to talk to somebody? Because the answer is going to be no. If I have an extra hour to go back and grab a beer, I'll do that instead of talking to a therapist about how I might feel. You know, and once they start, everybody that I get on the phone with our therapist, I mean, I'm talking the hardest pipe hitters that I've ever known. Once I get them on the phone, they call me back immediately. That woman's amazing. You know, and she had me crying for 45 minutes. I'm like, I know, right? It's just weird. It's one word and you're crying. And she just knows how to get to that thing you're hiding inside. You know, whatever it is that person's hiding, she knows how to get around it and talk about the reality of it. And we use it a lot. We use all the tools she's taught us over the years, and we bring her with us. And I think the Army's doing a lot better, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time because even if they offered it, people aren't going to get the help yet. So once they start to get the help, then they'll be behind on doctors, and you know they don't have to catch up. So it's a big process. I mean, it's a big organization, and it takes time to help everyone in it.
You're talking about revamping an entire system.
Yeah, and I mean, people complain about the VA. I mean, if you complain without a solution, it's just bitching. It goes nowhere. So the VA is a huge organization. I tell people, hey, it serves those who need it, and you get what you pay for. It's free. You're going to wait in line, but it's serving millions of veterans, right? So it's going to be a delay. The new medical systems where I can just use that. You know, I picked that. I don't have to go to the military. I can go to a doctor. It's still pretty cheap. I mean, a lot of us in the military don't understand the realize how good we had it and how much things cost when you get out. And so part of what we do is awareness of, if you're going to get out in a couple of years, you know, don't wait till 2 years before, don't wait till 6 months, start 5, 10 years out. Start planning your life beyond retirement now. Saving, medical, what are you going to need when Uncle Sam doesn't give it to you anymore? You know, where it costs, you have to pay half of what Uncle Sam used to give you for free while paying half of what you used to make. So you got to make those plans to get that health care you need, but it's there. It's just people need help navigating it.
Now, what issues are you dealing with now, and how do you know that you're making improvement from one month to the next? Like this month is better than last year. How do you measure that?
Right now, we have an analytics tool that helps us analyze through interviews and forms that people fill out after we help them. A lot of what comes back are a message when my message inbox fills up, and I feel so bad. I'm just hours a day trying to answer people and let them know, but almost all of them are, you've helped so much, this certain thing helped me, this certain video helped me, or your 6-week mind and body reset helped me, you know, because guys get out, they stop working out, they start eating worse, and then they gain weight, and then they feel bad about themselves. And I went through the same thing. I'm still going through it. It's like, man, I used to work out 3, 4, 5 times a day, and now I don't. I used to eat 6 times a day, and I still do. Something's given there, and then you're eating poorly. So whatever you're putting in your body's going to your brain, and now you're thinking poorly, and now you're depressed, and now you miss this, and so all of that piles on top, and it seems insurmountable. Right? So we tell everybody, take a little bite at a time, man. Start with your diet. You don't have to work out and diet. And it's not even a diet, it's a lifestyle change. Eat right. Do that for a while. You feel a little better. Go walking. I mean, I started out walking again. I used to run 10 miles a day in between workouts and riding my bike. And I'm like, now I go out and I walk, and I'm like, man, I'm breathing. I'm like, this sucks. I caused it, right? So I got to do the work to get back into it. And that's the biggest key to everything, is putting in the work. And I told my son growing up, you get out what you put into anything in life. You know, your parents lied to you. They said you could be anything you want to be, and they stopped talking. They should have said you can be anything you want to be if you work your ass off for it, right? That's what you do. You work hard, and you never quit, and you'll always win. But you have to put in that work.
Right, and in your book, you mentioned the difficulties connecting with your son while you're in the thick of these deployments. How is that today?
Yeah. So I talk about that a lot. He's 21. He's a normal kid, you know, and I look back on how often did I go home or email, or, well, I had to write letters home back in the day, but things are a little easier now and they still don't get done. But, you know, when I left home, I didn't go back much. I didn't call or go, you know, and so my son took off, joined the Army, and now he's living with his mom in North Carolina, and we talk a little bit. I had zero relationship. So I have to put in the work, and I text, and like a kid, a month later, hey Dad, I got your text. You know, I'll call you tomorrow. A month later, I'll text him back, are you still in a meeting or something? You know, and so it's a lot of work to put in to rebuild a relationship, and that's why I tell everybody now, hey, maintain that relationship. You'll never get them back as a child. You'll never get them back as a middle schooler or a high schooler. You'll never get them back, right? So you're going to miss all those years. Get on the floor and play with your kids. Listen to their little problems, because if you don't listen to the little ones, they won't bring the big ones to you. I don't have a relationship with my son other than what I'm working on to get back now, and it'll take time.
Now, as far as your foundation, I wanted to talk about that in depth as well. How many guys and women have you helped?
Oh, wow. So I'd probably say in the last 2 years, we've helped. Now my wife got a number this morning, I'm trying to edit. So probably about 60 to 70,000 people via personally talking to them, through our therapists, through our retreats, through the book, through messaging, and through speaking engagements. That's probably an easy number to throw out.
Wow,
I'd say that we've helped that many. This year we've helped more due to COVID. And spent less money, but less face-to-face. We like the face-to-face, we like the retreats, we like to get the families in there and talk. Now we've helped more, and it looks good analytically on paper. We're spending less money and helping more people, but we're not getting the thoroughness that we want out of it. So we just keep at it, and we keep going. And we've added a lot of online content this year that we were going to put off for a year. This year seemed to be the year to do online stuff, so we knocked out a lot of our courses that we're going to offer people too.
And what does the future hold for the foundation? Where do you see it going?
Wow, growing in size so we can help more. We're going to scale it so as we get, bigger and bigger, we can have 2 retreats a month at a time and have 2 therapists that do the same things we want. But we want to maintain the quality, so we're going slow so we get the same kind of results out of the therapist that we have now that we get out of another therapist. So we're going to have our therapist bring in someone that she knows that does the same things and has the same personality, because it's so much to do with personality. You show up to a therapist. So many people I talk to, I went to therapy twice and I hated it. I went through 5 different therapists before I found the one that worked and I liked and gelled with, and we hired her. But it takes, it's human connection. So if you go and see a therapist and you don't like it, well, it's probably the connection. You need to change and try again.
Right. Or do you have any qualifications for who you help, as far as they have to be from the special operations community?
We say that. We started out only special operations. During COVID, we opened it up to first responders because they're the ones on the front lines all the time, and we helped a lot of first responders. Cops are like special ops guys. They don't want to act like they need help. Firemen are like Air Force. Yeah, sure, they admit it and they get some help, and it's tough. And we've had other veterans that aren't special ops, and they let me know. I'm like, I don't care, keep talking. We've never turned anybody away. And when people ask us, why don't you help all vets? Our answer is money and staff. We just can't start and then help everybody because there's just not the money. Our messages are for everyone. Our free content is for everyone. Our retreats are only for special operations and their wives because that's what we have the money to serve right now. They're the ones doing the bulk of the hard work over and over and over again. They're the ones that I'm familiar with. So, you start with what you know. But our goal is to grow. And instead of just helping people who do reach out, regardless, letting them know to please reach out and we'll help. So we hope to grow our staff, grow our donations so we can and help all veterans.
Okay, that's good. I also read a part about the spouse veteran, Virago. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah, my wife started that because she gets a lot of secret messages. A lot of, hey, I follow you, but I can't like your content. I can't, I can't be your friend because my husband's still in. He's in special ops and they don't want to talk about it and we can't admit that we have issues, right? It's sad that people say that.
Yeah.
So Virago was started for the female spouses that need help with their husbands that don't want to be on a public forum. They can be on a private forum and share stories and get different ideas of how to get help and have the tools that we have without people kind of knowing about it. So we have a public and a private one, I guess is what you'd call it, to where people don't really see who's involved. And we get a lot of that. We bump into people when we go back to reunions at Fort Bragg. I love what you do. And I'm like, I've never seen you comment or like or share or see any of our stuff. So we know that people are seeing it. We know that it's like that taboo thing to be part of.
Yeah, and there's actually an audience of people that you may not be aware of that you're on their radar, but how are you supposed
to? Right, and you never know until someone slips and says something like, I saw you, and you're like, oh, really good, and I'm glad you see me.
Now, where can someone go to get more information on that? Because I've I've had people, spouses, and she tells me about the issues with her husband, and I'm like, I really don't have a solution or even an answer, and I tried finding resources, and it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we might specialize, right? We specialize in the family because a lot of organizations help veterans. A lot of organizations send a veteran to Disney. A lot of organizations go hunting, come on then, do this and that. And then they go home and the spouse is still, they had to live through the same thing, right? So they're still angry. They're still upset. What about me? And then that system breaks down, right? So your battle buddy is your spouse, your full-time battle buddy. So we bring in the spouses. We get them talking. We share things that the spouses never knew, and we show them what to look for, and they're both aware. They're both helping each other. They both have the tools, and now they can support each other longer. And we find out that it lasts a lot longer versus people relapsing. And then they kind of support each other, and we start those groups, and we get different families that are always there for each other as well. So building that network of people that if I'm not available, my wife's not available, our therapist's not available, there's a network of people now that are familiar with everything that we do that they can reach out to 24/7 and always have someone to talk to. But working with a family is key. And you can go to allsecurefoundation.org and get all of that information on there. All of our products, all of our courses are on there as well. We're on all social media as All Secure Foundation, even Twitter at All Secure Vets, though I still don't understand Twitter, and I'm having a tough time figuring it out, but we're there. And if you go to our organization, our website, we have an email there. You can just send in an email that comes directly to Jen and I, and we get straight to work.
Okay. Now, as far as yourself personally, recreationally, what do you do for fun? What do you find joy in doing?
I hate this question because I don't do anything.
I'll try to humanize you now. The next question is going to be, what's your favorite?
Yeah, I do housework, man. I love to clean. I'm a sick guy like that. I love to clean. So I got two stepkids, so I go behind them cleaning all the time. I have 3 dogs, so I like to build. So we do a lot of work on our house, updating our house. Bought a house that hadn't been updated since it was built. So I've been working on that for the last 5 years. Just slow. That's kind of what I do. I'll tile, I'll do plumbing, electrical work. So just slowly remodeling our house.
Awesome.
I don't have a lot of spare time, but when I do, it's working on the house.
Okay, that wraps it up. I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else you want to put out there?
No, I think that was it. It was pretty good, man.
Yeah, I think so too. I am also affiliated with several podcasts.